You're listening to the Rockanon Music Podcast.
Hello, this is Joe Lara coming to you from Portland, Oregon on the 4th of July. I figured I'd get out and explore Portland a little bit. I'm here today with fine artist Stephen BERGSTROM. How's it going?
It's going great, thank you.
Yeah, we had quite a weekend, man. I'm kind of hungover. I'm kind of stoned. I've been through so much alcohol, and we've been to the beach, so I'm in the zone right now. We were talking about our favorite album covers. I was thinking of you specifically because of your background in fine art. You have created a massive body of work. If anybody was to type the name Stephen BERGSTROM into the Google search engine and then hit images, the entire screen turns to paintings that you've done. I mean, this massive body of work is just out there, primarily oil on canvas.
Yeah, and it's just that, no mediums. Yeah, I work with an underpainting and then work on top of that in that method. That way to get to the end result.
Your art really inspired me quite a bit. I delved and began oil painting myself, basically off of the exposure to that world, seeing you make a living and produce and deal art.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's a journey. It's not about the end result. It's about the journey, and I'm still on that. I did that body of work that you mentioned. That's all over the internet, and that was the one series that I did, but it blew up, and so I did it for years, and then even recently have found my way to tattooing, which is really interesting. It was an interest of mine 30 years ago, but it took me 30 years to actually get to a point where it's something that I'm adding into the kit of art.
You know, everybody has art in them. They paint, they practice it in different forms. But a lot of it, you know, the idea of being a career artist is kind of like pie in the sky type of stuff. How do you actually do that? And I kind of would watch you actually pack up a trailer and like a road showman haul these things from town to town. I mean, you'd be on the road. If you weren't painting, you were on the road selling them. Right.
And that came later in my career where we hit a recession. And so instead of being in galleries in Carmel and Kauai, New York, and Southern England, now I was taking my fine art to art in the park, which was an interesting transition because I had no idea. It's like, okay, I'm taking an expensive painting and prints and going to the lawn at your local city park.
Yeah.
And it was funny. It was a transition there to get used to that. But then I started to really love the lifestyle of driving around, setting up, meeting the collector firsthand, and developing the collector. And it was great because when you're in your studio, I spent years in a studio with a lot of solitude, just painting, and it was great. But then there was a transition that happened, so now I became the artist and the art dealer in one.
Yeah.
But what a great experience, because you really didn't know how people perceived or liked your paintings, or what they would talk about when they saw your paintings. You didn't know, and the art dealers always didn't want you to know that information because they don't want they get 50% of what.
Yeah, you're directly communicating with the audience. Right.
Exactly, and that was a real eye opener.
You've been in Portland for a long time.
20 years.
Yeah. It was cool coming down this weekend, kind of just seeing how the city has fared. I hadn't been here in a couple of years. There's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of garbage, a lot of graffiti, a lot of tags. The city looks different, much like Seattle. I haven't been back to Los Angeles in a couple of years, so I know there's exodus movement out of Los Angeles, because they're having the same thing.
Yeah.
But
especially in their downtown area. My son lives in Huntington and works for the school district down there in the downtown LA area, and he has a lot of stories about going to work and having to move through those areas where not only is it homeless, but all the kind of activities that go along with that, drug use and prostitution, and right up to the school fence.
Yeah. You drive around the streets here, and it's these communities, these shanty towns that line the streets, mostly of white people. you can kind of see the face of that, and that's kind of interesting. On this Independence Day, it was perfect coming down here. I'm seeing America. Seeing the face of America.
Yeah, this is the new America. But it's worldwide. We're just kind of new to it.
This is true. We're a young country. Definitely. We're going to take 5, have a coffee here, and then begin our discussion of favorite album cover paintings. We'll be back. I love album covers. And I was thinking it'd be a cool topic to talk about our favorite album covers. It's a very interesting medium. I'm going to kind of kick this off with Killers from Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's the one, no matter if you like the music or not, you'd see kids around school wearing the T-shirts. Or
we pulled up Derek Riggs' Killers album cover, man. I can't even tell you how many hours I spent smoking weed as a kid staring at this thing. Number of the Beast. He did a lot of their Eddie artwork, and it was kind of violent. The killings and the city landscape, the clouds, the lighting on Eddie himself. You'd freak out. You'd do a bunch of LSD and drugs, and you'd stare at these things and freak out. And 12-inch medium record covers were 12-inch squared, and they were cellophaned, and it's a hell of a medium. Like a paperback book is quite a bit smaller, but the albums gave you a pretty solid reproduction of artwork as well as the music. Mm-hmm. And Derek Riggs, he did so much. I mean, he's mostly known for Iron Maiden. He's a really cool guy. You can go to his website and send him records, send him posters, and he'll sign them and send them back to you. Just really gracious like that. All around great graphic artist. What would you put for number 5?
I put Dave McMackin's Overnight Sensation, Frank Zappa.
Yes.
I've always been a little bit of a Zappa fan from time to time. I met a guy in Astoria. I had an art gallery there, and it was kind of interesting, but I met Dave. I was walking my dog, and he had a hat on, and I think it said Art Center. Like the Art Center College of Design down in Pasadena. It turns out he went there. And Dave at the time was probably, hitting 65, 70 right in there.
Yeah.
And, I said hello to him. He was actually like doing some gardening. And I was like, oh, Art Center, did you go there? And he's like, yeah. And then it turns out he was this illustrator in the LA area during that time, which was great. That was the heyday of illustration. Before he moved to Astoria to retire. But the bulk of his career was probably in the 70s. Right, yeah.
60s to 70s.
Exactly. Yeah, he kind of came out of Art Center and started working. Even worked for George Lucas and did a lot of the work and posters and that kind of thing. Zappa got a hold of him and wanted to do some work. And Dave's got just some great stories about just being on the phone or being over at Zappa's house, Frank's house, and him just like going off on what he wanted on these album covers, to the point where Dave just would go home and just start drawing. And if you really look at these paintings, there's some weird stream of conscious things going on in there. So the two kind of met with that idea. Frank Zappa was always kind of stream of conscious in his music.
Yeah.
Was very much like that. And Dave picked up on that and just started hey, let it flow.
This is why I wanted you to do this podcast with me, because your art background, I knew you were going to have interesting things like this.
It was interesting. We talked, for hours about illustration. I was an illustrator in the late 80s in the Seattle area, so we were able to just really talk about the inner workings of illustration and art directors, all that kind of thing. And then I let him know I had an art gallery in Astoria, and we were going through his collection of illustrations, the originals, and boom, here's this Overnight Sensation. And not only it's one side, but two sides. It actually is a horizontal piece. And so I did a whole show for Dave at the gallery, and that's one of the pieces that hung in the gallery. There was actually 2 Zappa album covers, and
these look like underground art in a way.
Very much so. as an illustrator, this is the kind of jobs you loved. No one was really dictating or art directing you. You just went full blast into it.
It's glorious. There's a
is.
lot here to look at.
Right. Yeah, he's got a pair of underwear there, a boot. Look at the bottom. There's some sexual references in the,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The frame. It's like...
Right. There you go. Just little hidden things in there, and you have to look closely to see. This was great album cover stuff, because you're listening to this Frank Zappa stream of conscious music going on, and sometimes he goes into left field in his music, but you're staring at this piece of work. You're feeling it.
I like the guy that looks like Ron Jeremy, the two-headed Ron Jeremy guy.
That's Dave. That was Dave.
Oh, that's Dave the Mackin.
Back in the
perfect.
day. Yeah, that was Dave.
This
back
is
in
an
the day.
overnight sensation we're looking at.
Yeah.
It's like a montage or an anthology of Frank Zappa imagery, but then there's McMacken sitting on a couch right in the middle of it. Yeah, that's a great choice. At number 4 for me, I've got Boris Vallejo's The Ultimate Sin.
Oh, that's a good one.
When I was a kid, we were all comic book geeks and we loved graphic art. I remember Boris being perceived as like a Frazetta knockoff. You had at the top of the heap Frank Frazetta, and he had all the choice stuff, but you couldn't always get Frank Frazetta. He was always booked up.
Yeah.
So Frazetta would just paint what he wanted, and then if you buy it and use it for whatever you want, you know what I mean? I don't think he did album covers specifically, paperback specifically. He painted images, and then people they would just say, just paint anything. We'll find something for it. But Boris, he did do very specific things, specific album covers, designed, commissioned work, basically. When I was a kid, Boris wasn't quite as cool. He was very slick. It wasn't, but he isn't as rough. We were talking about backgrounds. How Frazetta would have an incredibly slick, painted piece of action, slick from the blood to the sweat. But then in his backgrounds, they get very raw and rough and unfinished look.
Right, painterly.
Yeah. And I like that. Boris didn't do that, really. I mean, from corner to corner,
it's all slick.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting, you brought that up about Frazetta, is you can also find that in a Leonardo da Vinci, that it'll be very slick in the foreground, especially in the face, very angelic. You look at the background, and it's rough. It's almost like sketch work.
Yes, and it's the surrealness of it. It does something to it.
I think it was part of his style.
This The Ultimate Sin is an apocalyptic scene. There's got Ozzy in there. He's like a demon dragon. There's an atomic bomb going off. Very red and just explosive looking. It's a nuclear explosion. Kind of a very hellish apocalyptic vision. But the girl, the way she's built, some of my favorite Boris Vallejo work. He's still alive as far as I know.
Yeah, and his compositions are amazing. He was a master of contour continuation, to keep your eye within the image and not leaving the image. And you can see that within the female figure and her pose and her hands. You can see that in the dragon character that becomes Ozzy's head. If you look at the way the arm and the hands come down and then they pitch over to his arm and then back around, you stay within that image.
Vallejo did a large amount of album covers. He did, here we have one, Flotsam and Jetsam, No Place for Disgrace. It shows Harry Carey, a guy about to kill himself with a sword. Ted Nugent's Penetrator record, where it's got the dragon tattoo on the bicep and it's coming alive.
Oh, yeah, that's a good, I've always loved that one.
What do you have for number 4?
Number 4 is Blackout, the Scorpions.
Gottfried Heinwein. That is a really interesting painting. Okay, I'm going to start out with this.
Okay.
A lot of people, myself included, for years thought that was a portrait of Rudolf Schenker.
Right, and it's not. It's a portrait of the artist.
Yeah. It looks just like him. Yeah. And not only that, Rudolf Schenker played this character in the No One Like You video. They put the forks on his eyes, and so it wasn't difficult to get that impression.
This is the reference for the painting?
Yeah, we're looking at a photograph, which is just a straight photograph of Heinwein. This was a great breakthrough album cover for them, and album. This album speaks to everybody. Everybody knows this image. It was on all the T-shirts.
Right.
He probably got a pretty good chunk for doing that. I mean, it
could be. It's funny how that works. Everybody wanted to do, as an illustrator, album covers, because you got to kind of like really do something that you want to do.
Yeah.
So it was always a great opportunity. But sometimes bands coming up or medium, it just depends on the contract, whether you got points, what they call on it. And that was hard to do as an artist to know. It's like, well, these guys, unless you knew they were making millions of dollars and you said, hey, why don't I just do the piece of artwork for you and I'll take 1 point off the sales. But, Columbia or whoever probably would say no and say, well, we can give you $400. And we want, and then as an artist, if they wanted the original, and I did this, I had companies like, oh, can you send us the original too? And I was like, yes. And it cost, $1,200 or whatever it was for the original.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they said no. Well, I would give them the rights to use it for one price. If someone knew enough to get a point off of the record sales, then yeah, you could make a lot of money off an album cover.
And we'll get more into that as well. The marketing and the merchandising and how much mileage some of these illustrations and paintings got.
Yeah.
Now, like with this one, with the Blackout album cover, for me, this hands down is like the single most iconic and memorable Scorpions album cover.
Yeah.
This is, to me, them in a nutshell. I had that T-shirt with that image on it, so it became shirts, it became posters. It went far more than just the record.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he got a piece of that. But that's how powerful these images became. It became the band's identity.
Yeah.
And Heinwein's got a whole lot of great work to look at. That's a good selection.
And it's largely missing today too. Even trying to gather my top 5 was very difficult because there's so much photography, there's so much graphic design, and there was a really kind of a window where they were using illustrators because that's what you did when you were publishing something where it needed a visual. You go to an illustrator.
I'm going to go on to mine.
Okay.
My number 3, and this was a huge one for me. Richard Corbin's "Bat Out of Hell." Mm-hmm. Richard Corbin was he was a painter. He used airbrush. Yeah. He was known for airbrush illustrations in like Heavy Metal magazine. So Heavy Metal magazine would be all black and white, and then in the middle they'd have like 5 to 10 pages of a color story den.
Yeah.
And every issue, that's what you had. That was the format. I loved Richard Corbin. Unfortunately, he passed away at the end of last year, December.
Oh, yeah.
I had long wanted to send him a copy of Bat Out of Hell and go, hey man, would you sign this for me?
Yeah.
This guy, bare chested on a motorcycle, just powering out of a grave in the middle of a graveyard with a big cryptic bat there, and he's out of there, man. His spirit is completely out of there. I actually tried to recreate a photograph of this, and what I ended up doing was having Melanie take a picture of me on my motorcycle, and then just imposing it into this background.
Right.
I totally violated this image, like put it on Facebook.
The wonders of Photoshop.
I don't know if he did too many record covers. He was mostly a fantasy illustrator. What do you have for your number 3?
My number 3 is in utero, Robert Fisher. This is I believe it's the second Nirvana album.
The third.
It
was their final record. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bleach, Nevermind, in utero.
Oh, okay. If you're adding, yeah, right.
As far as studio records
Bleach,
go.
Nevermind, yeah.
Now, my understanding is he also did Nevermind. He was more of a graphic artist. So Cobain would basically say, hey, I kind of want like some female anatomy, maybe throw some wings on it, fix it. Rig it up. And so he had a lot of leeway to do these things.
Yep. This is a mixed media image. So there is illustration in there. There's graphic design. There's photography. It's a very poignant image.
Now, Nirvana actually toured with a couple of these things on their stage set. I mean, they had these. They were, I don't know if they're mannequins.
Yeah, someone made some sort of representation. Oh, there you go.
It sits in the EMP right now. It's you can see the intestine. Yeah, that was one of their stage models. The stage ones doesn't have arms though. I wonder why they didn't put the arms on it. Maybe they fell off, lost them.
Yeah, or maybe the wings, were supposed to be the representation of that. But it's such a fascinating image. It's the human image that we all know, but then the wings suggest a spirit or an angel, which is really interesting. And then even the title, In Utero, is us being formed into planet Earth.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful image, and you could go on for hours talking about the symbology of this, but the right up front image of the human and the wings saying that, we're not only human, but we're spiritual. And that's a fascinating image because I believe Kurt Cobain was that. You see it in his music. He had a tragic ending, very conflicted, obviously, human being.
That's a strong number 3. I'm going to go forward with my second choice. My selections are things that really spoke to me. Not all of them are the greatest pieces of art, but what moved me. And my top two are great pieces of art. Molly Hatchet by Frank Frazetta. That was the Death Dealer.
Mm-hmm.
Shh. Shh.
Who let the dogs out? Okay. They're Molly Hatchet fans. This is.
Shh. Molly Hatchet used a lot of Frazetta paintings on their covers. My number two is specifically Molly Hatchet, the first record, and they used the Death Dealer. This was a pre-existing painting. It had been used all over the place. In the 70s, people were painting this on Chevy vans. You would see a Death Dealer beautifully painted on the side of a van.
Oh, yeah.
I recreated this one for myself. It's one of my first oil paintings that I did. It's massive. I mean, it's like 4 by 5 feet. Huge. This original is like 12 inches by 20 inches. It's incredibly small. And I wanted it huge. But what can you say about Frank Frazetta? He just painted what he painted, and then people just kind of did what they wanted with it. He was incredibly prolific. My all-time favorite artist, even though I only have this image at number 2 and not my all-time. But this is one of my all-time most favorite images. Likewise with Flirting with Disaster, all the stuff that he did, the paperbacks. I bought every book, every calendar, every anthology or collection, everything they put out on Frazetta, I just consumed it. There's a really great documentary called Painting with Fire. You can watch it for nothing on YouTube that documents his life and shows him in the act of painting and creating these. And
or even using himself as reference. So
his own anatomy.
Right.
So
he
he
really
actually had a physique like that and was extremely athletic. And you can see him in his face in those Conan renderings. It's really cool.
Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. I could look at it for hours. There's lots of symbology here.
There's that rough edge in the background, and
it is a strong male figure. But also, you have the Grim Reaper in here. But then you have the bird, the eagle, in the background representing the spirit. And then at the bottom, where it's just fire down here, so it's kind of like the depths of hell. On the shield, you have a bird. It kind of looks like a dragon or a phoenix.
I painted this at such a size, like when they were painted on the side of vans, they were so big that if you stood in front of it, you were inside the painting.
Right.
And having painted all these brushstrokes, not with the expertise of a Frazetta, but something that I could live with, I have truly lived this painting. I love that. When you step inside of a painting, study it, and do that, you have lived that painting. Let's move forward with your number 2.
Number 2, Kansas, Left Overture.
This is McMacken.
Yeah.
And, he did a lot of great records.
There's a great song on here.
We'll Carry On Wayward, sir, and kicks it off.
So that song came to me one day, and I was like, oh, that's a great song.
He did some great art, and just to speak about McMacken, he passed away how long ago?
2019. Yeah,
that's really a shame. I look at his pictures, and he had like a great face, and looked like he had a great joy to him.
He did. He was a very robust person. We used to go over. CG and I would go over to his house, and we would hang out with him and his wife and their dog and their cats. And just drink wine and eat and dance in their living room. And their whole house, he was a toy collector as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he had them all over in the living room, and then he would have posters that he worked on or collected upstairs in his studio as well. But this image speaks a lot of different volumes. When you first look at it, you're almost looking at a composer, but at the same time, I see Nostradamus.
Yeah.
I see philosophers. And this character here reminds me of that. Is that music notes on that sheet there? I'm a little far away. Or it's all writing.
He's kind of writing music, and he's got some grief about it.
Definitely has a spiritual tone to it as well.
Great line work. Yeah, McMacken was great. For my number 1... Well, I'm going to put this as my number 1 favorite album cover. Kiss Love Gun by Ken Kelly.
Kiss Love Gun. There's nothing sexual about that, right?
Now, I repainted this album cover for myself as it is, but of course, on my Paul Stanley, I put a giant cock on him, to make the namesake of Love Gun.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And so he's got this big 12-inch bulge where the sausage is...
Like in Spinal Tap, the cucumber fans.
Spinal Tap. No, but the Love Gun. This image is very slick. I look at this as Ken Kelly's masterpiece. When he talks about this, he goes to conventions and people bring these albums up. This is his biggest work.
Wow.
He was the nephew of Ellie Frazetta.
So that's interesting.
Ellie was his aunt.
I see some of the crossover in the background work.
His aunt marries Frank Frazetta, this defining artist of fantasy art. You couldn't always get him. He had the ultimate artist reality, turning millions of dollars on this incredible artwork. He would delegate out jobs, and he would kick down work to his wife's nephew, Ken Kelly. I remember as a kid getting the Conan paperbacks with the Ken Kelly covers. My favorite of all time was Red Nails. Conan is there with Valerie, and they're engaged in battle, and the whole depiction is just of flesh, of Conan ripping this guy's head off with this knife, and the head's in midair, and just the action of it. I looked at Ken Kelly as the heir apparent to Frank Frazetta, the only guy even close. And amongst my friends who were all into fantasy art and comic books and stuff, Ken Kelly was the guy. He was legit.
Yeah.
None of us knew that Kelly was part of the Frazetta family. We had no clue of that. I think he took a lot of cues from Frazetta. I think he learned a lot from Frazetta. Yeah. And so this particular painting
might have even studied with him in his studio. I've had people come over and spend 6 months or a year just coming over weekly and just watching me paint in the studio with me, and then they kind of adopt some of your style, and it's cool because you're passing the torch. You want to do that in your career. You rise to a certain point, a point in your work where it's like, this is a language I've created. I want to share it with other people. It's like 200 paintings before you really start to move.
Yeah.
And turn corners in your work and get comfortable with it. That's where it's kind of like being a child, and then at a certain point you're 8, 9, 10 years old, and you feel like you know the English language.
You hit a stride, but then also it's interesting. There's a downward trajectory to where, like, Frazetta, near the end of his career, was almost like he wasn't close to what he was doing in the 70s, when he got later and later, but he also had a stroke, and he had to switch and start painting with his left hand, and it's amazing he could paint it all, but he had that window. Kelly had that as well. He had preceded this with the Destroyer album cover, which is a great album cover, but nowhere near as slick as this. And you can see that with a lot of artists, a trajectory from where they're great, but then they create these transcendent masterpieces, and then they go into a decline. That arc. I love Ken Kelly. I love his art and the experience of him. He has a website. You can write to him. I wrote to him and got signed prints of these poster prints of these album covers, Destroyer and Love Gun, and I just kind of spoke to him, and that's something you can do. He's available. He's a great convention guy. He'll sign the stuff for you. With the case of the Love Gun painting, he speaks of this. He bought his house with it. It made his entire career. This one work. And what they did with it, they put it on every toy. They put it on T-shirts, on posters. It's lunchboxes. Action figures are made off of it.
Like I was talking about before, he was privy to contract and getting points, which is, they do that in the film business, but you can do that in this case as well.
Having a mentor like Frazetta, he probably knew to do that.
That's how they figured it out, or passed the torch on that one.
Having insight to the top of the business, the top of the heap.
I learned that in art school because one of my teachers put together the Starbucks logo. And in those classes, we talked about, instead of getting money up front, just take a point.
Yeah.
And at that point, Starbucks was just this little coffee place up at the Pike Place Market. No one knew it was going to blow up. And I believe she took a point off that.
Yeah, that thing is everywhere. Same with this. Kiss is the ultimate self-marketing band. I mean, they created so much swag. They are the blueprint for self-marketing, and they used this image to do that.
Yeah.
He's repainted this image a number of times for people that just say, "Hey, I want an original image, original oil painting of that." We do it, and I don't know what he charges, probably a ton, but you see them online, and they're good.
It's funny because I had that too out of Carmel. There was a painting I did called Blue Bicycle.
Yes.
And the gallery would call me up and it's like, hey, would you mind doing another Blue Bicycle? And I think I did it 11 times. On my end, it was always like $1,500, and I could do that image in like 3 or 4 days.
Probably got pretty good at it. Like
Right.
his subsequent reproductions.
I shut it down after a while. After that 11th one, it's like I'm not doing another freaking Blue Bicycle painting. I'm just not.
That's my number one. What do you have?
Rick Griffin, Grateful Dead, and the album cover name is AOXOMOXOA.
I think that's pronounced Aox Omo Oxoa.
And let's hope that's not some incantation and you're gonna start sprouting horns or something.
Yeah, so Rick Griffin's Grateful Dead cover, Aoxoma Oxoa. That's a very colorful, explosive, psychedelic cover. He did a lot of their posters. He was the guy.
Yeah, and it's funny. I chose this one. I've delved into their music a little bit, but the art is just fascinating. I love it. But look at it, it's just beautifully done line art with color.
He was a cool looking guy too. He looked like a Grateful Dead guy.
Yeah, the long hair with the handlebar mustache. Yeah. And then here you just there's so much symbology going on. Growth coming out of the ground, but then on both sides you have the tree of life, but you also have the mushroom, and even in this time the mushroom was a psychedelic, but a lot of people were also using it as a spiritual experience, and that's what this painting suggests. From the tree of life to the sun representing the spirit. You see a lot of that here. There's a beetle in there that has lots of different symbology to it as well. You got the lotus flower, so that suggests the chakras, and in this case the root chakra. So this guy wasn't just kind of stream of conscious. He was using a lot of symbology to represent the music of Grateful Dead, which was, even in their work, was very sort of stream of conscious. And you go to one of their shows and it was kind of improv.
Yeah. He got a lot out there, and a very recognizable artist. That's a very good selection. We had a lot of album covers. I mainly wanted to focus on paintings and illustrations. I wanted to honorable mention a few guys. You can't have this conversation without talking about people like H.R. Giger. He did, of course, the Alien design, but Necronomicon, he was a highly sought after artist.
I've got brain salad surgery.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Atomic Playboys. Giger got the Dead Kennedys into some hot water when they used the penis and vagina images on the Frankenchrist record and got charged with obscenity and all that. And I believe that kind of ended their band. Another guy I really like a lot is Doug Johnson, the Judas Priest artist. He did numerous covers like Defenders of the Faith, that real iconic eagle from Screaming for Vengeance, Turbo as well. Really just stylized illustrator. The artists brought like a uniform look and vibe to these bands, to their facade.
Yeah, I wanted to do a shout out to Think Tank and Banksy. So Banksy did a cover on that one, and it's two lovers about to kiss, but they're both wearing the old fashioned diver's helmet, like the old brass ones with the big circle on
right.
it. And it's just a cool image because it's like two lovers.
Black and white, I think.
Right, black and white. Two lovers they want to kiss, but they can't because they got the helmet on. But this is how he was always doing a juxtaposition in his work.
I would buy records just based off of the cover itself.
Yeah.
Like if you saw Derek Riggs' Killers or Number of the Beast, you didn't really need much more than that.
Right.
And same with the Frazetta, the covers and these sold records. I mean, and you're buying the art. You're the painting, this artist painting is selling you this record, and then you go home and you're like, well, what does it sound like? And then you put it on and you're listening to Kiss blow up your stereo. It's great.
Right. I don't even care if the music's good. I just want to bring this.
That's
art
what I mean.
home.
Yeah.
You're buying the art, which is really
for $10, it's worth it.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great subject. I love talking about art, and you're the guy to do it. Steven Bergstrom, look him up. Look up his paintings and check him out, man. It's just a smorgasbord. We should probably wrap this up. We are on the road in Portland and heading. We're still in the throes of a heat wave. Mm-hmm. We had to shut the air conditioner off because it was making a lot of background racket. But it's starting to get hot in here.
Yeah,
so
it's getting a little warm.
We'll go ahead and we'll call it a day, and we'll be back.
You're listening to the Rock and On Music Podcast.